During the Qianglin banquet, the crown prince spilled his wine cup, and a love letter slipped out from his sleeve. The third prince, quick-eyed and deft-handed, snatched it up and read it aloud in front of everyone. Every line was tender, overflowing with deep affection. The emperor, with a cold face, sternly demanded to know,
"Who dares to secretly collude with the heir to the throne?"
The crown prince turned pale and looked toward me.
Father, it was Shen Ning who gave it to me.
He knew I had long loved him, and was certain I would soften and take the blame to help him out of this predicament. From then on, I became the noble lady gossiped about by everyone in the capital, bearing baseless infamy. Considering my status as the daughter of an influential minister, and to settle the matter, His Majesty decreed that I be taken into the Eastern Palace as a concubine of the lowest rank. But from beginning to end, he never came within half a step of me. Later, when his treason was exposed, to protect the one he truly loved, he deliberately hid the treasonous letters in my bedroom. That was the very first time I saw the person he so carefully protected. As the wooden clubs rained down, I watched the scene before me and smiled with utter desolation. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the Qianglin banquet. The third prince had just finished reading the love letter, and the crown prince, just like in my past life, shifted the blame onto me. I immediately fell to my knees in the hall. Your Majesty, please discern the truth. This poem could never have been written by me. This line in the poem, I wish to share the same hairpins and crowns with you, and bind our hair together. As a woman, how could I write words concerning men's attire? As soon as these words were spoken, all the civil and military officials present were stunned. A dead silence fell over the hall. The third prince had not yet lowered the letter in his hand, and the mocking smile on his lips froze in place. High up on the dais, the emperor's eyes darkened as he stared intently at me.
"What did you say?"
His Majesty's tone was not loud, yet it carried a terrifying aura. In my past life, I had lost my composure under this very pressure. The heir to the throne, Xiao Chenggang, looked at me, panic and a plea for help hiding in his eyes. My past self had actually mistaken this illusion for love. At that moment, my heart softened, and I knelt down to take the blame. Your Majesty, please show mercy. It was my momentary madness that led me to write words I shouldn't have. As soon as those words left my mouth, the entire hall was shocked. My father's face turned livid with rage on the spot, while my stepmother covered her face and wept, as if the Shen family had been utterly disgraced by me. A few days later, a small, gray curtain carriage brought me into the Eastern Palace through the side gate. No red bridal gown, no guests invited. I didn't even get to see His Highness's face. The crown princess deliberately punished me by making me kneel in the ice and snow to learn etiquette. Her words filled with nothing but mockery.
A dog that forced her way into the Eastern palaces is not worthy of dreaming about His Highness.
At that time, I still held on to hope, thinking he was only avoiding me because of the gossip, and that it was inconvenient to meet, until the treason was exposed, and the guards found the treasonous letters in my room. In the pouring rain, Xiao Chenggang stood under the eaves, his gaze as cold as winter snow.
The daughter of the Shen family, bitter that her unrequited love for us was in vain, harbored malicious intent, colluded with foreign enemies, and plotted to bring ruin to the Eastern Palace.
When I was dragged to the courtyard for execution, I finally saw the person he had been hiding behind the scenes. He lowered his head gently and wiped away the tears from that person's eyes. This kind of affection was something I had never received in my entire life. Before the execution began, that person came up to me, their voice carrying a hint of arrogance.
Miss Shen, His Highness never liked you. From beginning to end, you were merely a pawn we used to cover up the scandal.
As the club struck my body and pain consumed my physical form, it was only at that moment that I finally woke up to reality. My long-standing, infatuated love was nothing more than a farce. My devotion to him was merely a tool to shield him from disaster. Now, everything starts over. That letter, which had almost ruined my entire life, was once again revealed in the grand hall. Xiao Chengkang turned pale and raised his hand to point at me.
Father, it was given to me by Shen Ning, father.
I raised my eyes and met his gaze. The pleading in his eyes was still obvious, but this time, my heart was filled with nothing but disdain. Your Majesty, I prostrated myself on the floor with a loud thud, my voice clear and resonant, echoing through the hall for a long time. Although I am foolish, I still understand that there is a vast difference between men's and women's attire. What is written in the letter, sharing a hairpin and crown, binding our hair together, are clearly words spoken only between men. If the crown prince insists that this was written by me, then I beg His Highness to explain clearly, in person. On which day did I ever wear a man's hair crown? Xiao Chenghang's hands suddenly clenched tight. The whispering in the hall erupted instantly. The third prince, Xiao Chengjing, took the lead in laughing out loud.
Brother, Lady Shen's words are highly logical. The noble young ladies of the capital all wear pearl flowers and hair ornaments. Who among them could share a hair crown with another? He looked down at the letter again
and deliberately read the remaining passages aloud.
Furthermore, it is also written on this paper, willing to lead the horse for my lord, and journey together to the ice and snow of the northern frontier. Miss Shen has been raised in the inner chambers since childhood. How could she possibly do the work of grooming and leading horses for someone else?
Xiao Chengyang's face grew increasingly unsightly. The gaze he directed at me had shed all of its disguises, leaving only sheer malice.
Shen Ning, do not deny it. You have always liked reciting poetry about the frontier. What is so strange about copying a few lines written in a man's tone?
What a ridiculous argument, calling a stag a horse. In my past life, I was deceived by his gentle disguise, but now I see right through him. What he is best at is framing others and setting traps. Just as I was about to speak up in rebuttal, from the family seating area, a soft voice slowly drifted over.
Sister Shen, things have already come to this, so why do you still stubbornly argue?
I turned my head to look. The person who had spoken was none other than Gu Qingyi, the designated future crown princess. She sat calmly below the dais, her expression gentle, yet her words harbored a hidden, deadly intent.
You have secretly loved His Highness for a long time. Who in the entire capital does not know this? During last year's Lantern Festival, you even personally gave His Highness a twin lotus lantern. Now that your private feelings have been exposed, if you do not wish to admit it, so be it. Why must you use these poor excuses to lash out at everyone?
My heart grew cold, bit by bit. It turned out that not only had the crown prince prepared an escape route long ago, but even Gu Qingyi had also been waiting to kick me while I was down. During the Lantern Festival, that twin lotus lantern had indeed passed through my hands, but it was not sent intentionally. Although I used to have feelings for the crown prince, I had always strictly abided by the rules, fully aware of the proper boundaries between men and women. That day, the bridge at the south of the city was congested, and a young girl almost fell into the river. In that moment of crisis, I hurriedly shoved the lantern in my hand to Xiao Chengyang, who was passing by, and turned back to pull the girl up. I don't know when it started, but rumors began to spread everywhere, claiming that I had presented a lantern to the crown prince in public to express my affection for him. I was furious back then, and I even clarified the matter in public, but no one was willing to listen. Everyone just said I was thin-skinned and too embarrassed to admit it. As time went on, even outsiders began to treat this rumor as the truth. It was exactly like this in my past life. Everyone was convinced that I was madly in love with the crown prince. Therefore, when the crown prince shifted the blame onto me, not a single guest in the entire hall had any doubts. Seeing me fall silent, Gu Qingyi let a barely perceptible smirk play on the corner of her lips.
Your Majesty, this daughter of your servant has no intention of making things difficult for Sister Shen.
She stood up and knelt down, her posture elegant and dignified.
It is just that the crown prince's reputation affects the destiny of our nation. If this matter were to spread, I fear it would damage the dignity of the Eastern Palace. Sister Shen is deeply devoted, and His Highness the Crown Prince is magnanimous. I beg your Majesty to show mercy and take her into the Eastern Palace, which would also fulfill her deep affection.
I knew this rhetoric all too well. In my past life, she had also knelt before the court just like this, hypocritically pleading for mercy on my behalf. With every word, she claimed she was willing to let me enter the Eastern Palace, and said that a woman's chastity is of the utmost importance. She argued that if I did not enter the Eastern Palace, I would have to spend the rest of my life lonely and helpless. Back then, I was incredibly grateful for her kindness. It was only after I completely entered the Eastern Palace that I realized the fulfillment she spoke of was merely a way to trap me under her nose and torture me day after day. Her heart was filled with resentment, but not because the crown prince was in love with me. She knew the crown prince had no interest in women, and my appearance happened to serve as the perfect cover for the scandal of the Eastern Palace. If I remained obedient and compliant, I would shield her from criticism, but the moment I made any move, she would personally push me into the fiery pit. The emperor remained silent for a long time, his expression dark and unreadable. Xiao Chengyang, as if catching a life-saving straw, immediately knelt on the ground.
Lady Shen is young and ignorant. I originally did not wish to expose her, but now, in order to absolve herself, she has actually slandered me and fabricated these lies. Such a heart is extremely malicious.
Every word he spoke was filled with grief, putting on a display of being deeply hurt. In an instant, the looks the people in the hall directed at me turned into a mix of disdain and ridicule. My father quickly stepped out from his seat and walked to the center of the hall. Regardless of the facts, he raised his hand, intending to slap me. I tilted my head and dodged it. His palm struck empty air, leaving him frozen in place. In my past life, I did not dodge. That slap left my ears ringing for a long time, and completely shattered my illusion of seeking help from my parents. In this life, I will never let myself be bullied again. Father, I raised my eyes and stared at him. In front of His Majesty, how can you recklessly enforce family discipline? My father's face flushed red with anger, and he hissed in a low, furious voice.
You wretched creature, have you not embarrassed the Shen family enough? Confess to your crime, quickly, and do not drag down the entire family.
It was that word, family, again. In my past life, to protect my family, I decided to take the blame and accept death. But after I drew my last breath, the Shen household did not hold even a simple funeral for me. My stepmother even openly declared that I got what I deserved, and was unworthy of being buried in the Shen family ancestral tomb. I let out a soft laugh. Father, if you are so afraid of being implicated, why not let your daughter finish speaking first? His Majesty finally spoke up.
Shen Ning, what else do you have to say?
I turned back to look at the third prince. Pardon my presumption, your highness. May I trouble the third prince to read this love letter once more? The third prince raised his eyebrows, as if finding the matter amusing. He indeed spread open the paper, and read aloud, slowly.
I wish to share a hairpin and crown with my lord, and bind our hair together. I wish to lead the horse and hold the reins for my lord, journeying together to the ice and snow of the northern frontier. I wish to embroider my lord's name upon my sleeve, caressing it in the dead of night, as if meeting an old friend.
Reading up to this point, he suddenly paused. I raised my head and spoke up. Your Highness, there is still one last line at the end. The third prince looked at me deeply for a brief moment, then continued reading.
When the spring hunt comes next year, by the old pine pavilion, I wish to hear my lord call me Zhao.
Zhao. As soon as those two words were spoken, Xiao Chenheng's eyes suddenly dilated. By the main entrance, the horsetail whisk in a young eunuch's hand slipped and fell to the floor. I followed the sound and looked over. That person was the very one the crown prince had spared no effort to protect in my past life. Everyone's gaze instantly gathered upon Zhao. His face turned pale as paper, and he hastily threw himself to the ground, begging for mercy.
This servant deserves death. I have lost my composure and breached etiquette.
Xiao Chenheng immediately spoke up to shield him.
It was merely a slip of a eunuch's hand. There is no need to overthink it.
He spoke incredibly fast, as if terrified that others would look at Zhao any longer. But the emperor's expression had already turned icy cold.
Is your name Zhao?
Zhao lay prostrate on the ground, his voice trembling uncontrollably.
Replying to your majesty, this servant's name is indeed Zhao.
In the main hall, the crown prince's face turned from green to pale. Even Gu Qingyi, who had always feigned composure, now showed panic on her face. She certainly had not expected that the letter would directly name Zhao. In my past life, before the third prince could finish reading the text, he was sharply cut off by the crown prince. Then the crown prince falsely accused me, and in my panic, I took the blame. Consequently, the latter half of the letter was never investigated by anyone. It turned out that the key to breaking this deadly impasse had been on this piece of paper all along. But in my past life, I was far too foolish and naive, personally throwing away my own chance of survival. Xiao Chenheng took a deep breath, forcing himself to stabilize his emotions.
Imperial Father, there are countless people in this world named Zhao. In order to clear her own suspicion, Shen Ning is blindly accusing a eunuch by my side. This is utterly ridiculous.
He turned back to glare at me, his tone filled with feigned grief.
Shen Ning, I understand that you harbor deep feelings for me. I cannot give you the title of crown princess, and I can accept that you hold resentment in your heart. But Zhao has grown up with me since childhood and is utterly loyal. How can you refuse to spare even a lowly eunuch?
What a fine phrase, utterly loyal. I kowtowed in a calm and unhurried manner. Your Majesty, this handmaid would never dare to frame anyone without cause. Since His Highness the Crown Prince says there are countless people named Zhao in the world, this handmaid risks her life to request. Since the Crown Prince says there are countless people named Zhao in this world, this subject risks her life to request that we bring in eunuch Zhao's handwriting to compare it with this love letter. The truth will be revealed instantly. Zhao suddenly looked up, his face filled with terror. Xiao Chenggeng's face darkened.
Shen Ning, stop this nonsense.
Facing his fury, my voice was loud and powerful. If the letter was not written by eunuch Zhao, this method will prove his innocence. Why is your highness so angry? The third prince smiled faintly.
Imperial brother, the young lady of the Shen family is right. It is merely comparing handwriting. It is not convicting anyone.
Xiao Chenggeng stared at the third prince, a murderous gleam flashing in his eyes. The emperor gave a cold command.
Bring paper and brush.
Before long, a eunuch brought the writing materials to Zhao. Zhao knelt on the ground, not daring to write for a long time. The emperor's tone grew increasingly terrifying.
Write.
Trembling all over, Zhao held the brush. He had only written the word, wish, when Gu Qingyi quickly spoke up.
Your Majesty, eunuch Zhao is overly frightened, and his hands are shaking. The handwriting he produces will surely be distorted. If this wrongly implicates the crown prince, would it not damage the dignity of the Eastern Palace?
I looked at her, smiling calmly. Miss Gu is indeed magnanimous. Just now, when you forced me to take the blame and enter the Eastern Palace, you did not seem so worried about wrongly implicating someone. Gu Qingyi's face stiffened as she was about to argue further. The third prince had already picked up the ruined paper Zhao had written on. He placed the ink on the paper next to the love letter and said,
Imperial father, in my view, the brushstrokes are extremely similar.
The emperor waved his hand, and the palace eunuch immediately brought both pieces of paper to the desk. Even though Zhao's hand was weak and unsteady, a long-established writing style is difficult to change. The character of the ink was almost identical. After reading them, the emperor slammed the papers heavily onto the imperial desk.
Xiao Chenggang.
The heir to the throne kowtowed heavily.
Imperial father, please investigate clearly. I had absolutely nothing to do with this. It must be Shen Ning and third brother colluding in secret to deliberately set a trap to harm me.
In his panic, Xiao Chenggang actually dragged the third prince down with him. The smile on the third prince's face vanished completely.
Imperial brother, I truly cannot bear such an accusation. The letter fell from your sleeve, and you were the first to falsely accuse Miss Shen. How has it now become me colluding to set a trap?
The scene in the hall had descended into utter chaos, but I knew in my heart that this was still far from enough. Relying solely on a love letter would at most convict him of moral depravity. The emperor might not strip him of his heir status for this alone. The suffering I endured in my past life, I will reclaim it all, piece by piece. I wanted to make Xiao Chenggang completely lose any chance of starting over. I kowtowed deeply, prostrating myself. Your Majesty, this subject has one more matter to report. Xiao Chenggang stared at me intently, his gaze drenched in coldness. I spoke word by word. This subject once ran into eunuch Zhao during the Lantern Festival. At that time, he was not dressed as a eunuch, but in the attire of an ordinary man, secretly meeting with merchants from Beatty. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall was shocked. The name Beatty carried far more weight than a mere private affair. The emperor was already extremely vigilant against the border bandits. Within the court and across the country, anyone who colluded with the Beatty in any way would face the death penalty. All color completely drained from Xiao Chenggang's face.
Shen Ning, you have truly gone mad. Zhao has stayed in the Eastern Palace for a long time and has never gone out. How dare you fabricate such a monstrous lie?
I kept my back perfectly straight. If your servant has spoken a single word of falsehood, I am willing to accept the capital punishment for deceiving the emperor. Beside me, my father's body shook with terror. He hurriedly spoke up.
Your Majesty, my daughter is still young. She must have been brainwashed by someone to spout such nonsense.
He wished he could rush over immediately and cover my mouth, but the palace guard stepped forward to block him. The emperor's eyes locked onto me.
Do you have any proof?
I did not present the ironclad evidence right away. Showing my hand too early would instead make it look like a deliberate setup. I lowered my head slightly. My tone was calm. That day, I only felt that something was amiss and could not see through his identity. Today, hearing the name in the letter and seeing this person's appearance, I finally remembered. If your Majesty has doubts, you can dispatch troops to the old pine pavilion in the south of the city to investigate. Beside the pavilion, there is an elderly couple who sells sugar paintings. Who witnessed this with their own eyes? The old pine pavilion was a place I had heard of from Zhao's own mouth. When I met my demise in my past life, he had mentioned that the crown prince was always there with him, and also said that Beatty spies like to disguise themselves as merchants to exchange intelligence at the tea shop behind the pine pavilion. Back then, trapped in a deadly impasse, I only took it as him showing off the crown prince's favor. Now, those words all turned into ironclad evidence to expose their scheme. The emperor immediately gave the order for the imperial guard to go out and search. During the wait, the atmosphere in the main hall grew oppressive to the extreme. Xiao Chenggang knelt on the ground, his forehead breaking out in a thick, cold sweat. Gu Qingyi spoke in a low voice.
Sister, do you understand how grave a capital offense it is to falsely accuse the crown prince?
I turned my head to look at her. Lady Gu is so certain that I am making a false accusation. Could it be that you know the truth of the matter? Her face stiffened, and she hastily explained.
I was merely afraid that you would make one mistake after another. Outsiders all say you are madly in love with the crown prince. Now that your beautiful dream has shattered, it is hard to guarantee you haven't lost your mind.
She still wanted to pin me to the pillar of wishful thinking. I looked up directly at the emperor. Your Majesty, Lady Yu has repeatedly asserted that your servant is in love with the crown prince. Please ask her to present her proof. Gu Qingyi frowned.
This matter is known to everyone in the city. Why is proof necessary?
Known to everyone? I gave a faint smile. When I saved someone, I casually gave them a paper lantern, which was twisted into a public confession in the street. When I ran into the crown prince while viewing flowers, it was twisted into a secret tryst. When father received an invitation to the Eastern Palace, I did not even step out of the door. Yet, it was still twisted into playing hard to get. With such rumors flying everywhere, does Lady Gu truly not know where the source lies? Gu Qingyi's face turned deathly pale. Only after entering the Eastern Palace in my past life did I realize that all the rumors had been spread by her. She had long known that the crown prince had no interest in women. Fearing that her future position as the crown princess would be unstable, she deliberately chose me, who in the eyes of outsiders, was a girl obsessed with the crown prince, to serve as a shield. She hyped up the rumors bit by bit, waiting for the love letter to come to light, and then conveniently kicked me into the Eastern Palace. This would not only cover up the crown prince's scandal, but also allow her to take the opportunity to torment me. The emperor stared intently at Gu Qingyi.
Lady Gu, how is it that you know these rumors so well?
Gu Qingyi knelt down to reply.
This subject only learned of them through the idle gossip of outsiders.
Outsiders.
The third prince spoke up slowly.
This subject, however, has heard otherwise. The very first person in the city to spread the rumor of Miss Shen's infatuation with imperial brother was none other than Lady Gu's personal maid.
Gu Qingyi whipped her head around to glare at him, her expression filled with panic. The third prince gave a faint smile and said no more. Just at this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed outside the doors. An imperial guard rushed into the hall to report.
Reporting to Your Majesty, the elderly couple who sell sugar paintings at the Old Pine Pavilion have been brought to the hall. They recognized a Zhao and identified him as having secretly met with a beady merchant there several times. Furthermore, beneath a stone slab behind the tea shop near the Pine Pavilion, we uncovered an Eastern Palace waist token and half a page of intelligence.
The emperor suddenly stood up.
Bring them up.
The half-page of secret intelligence was placed on the desk. Xiao Chenggong's face turned as pale as ash. No name was left on the paper, but at the bottom was stamped an exquisite red seal. The Eastern Palace, Secretariat. The emperor stared fixedly at the red seal, the veins on the back of his hands bulging.
Crown Prince, now, what explanation do you have left?
Xiao Chenggong prostrated himself on the ground.
Imperial father, your son has been set up and framed. Someone who must have stolen the Eastern Palace waist token, with the deliberate intention of framing me.
He turned his head to look at a Zhao beside him, his gaze suddenly turning fierce. I understood clearly in my heart. He was preparing to sacrifice a pawn to save the rook. As expected, Xiao Chenggong roared in anger.
Was it you who secretly plotted this behind my back? I treated you so well. How could you deliberately frame me?
A Zhao looked up in disbelief, his eyes filled with utter shock, followed by complete despair. In my past life, the crown prince had forced me to my death to protect him. But in this life, he was ready to abandon his longtime companion in the blink of an eye. A Zhao's lips trembled slightly, and she suddenly let out a soft laugh.
What does your highness want this servant to admit? To admit that the love letter was written by me? Or to admit that the Beatty intelligence came from my hands?
Xiao Chenggong roared.
You court death. You're courting death.
Ah, Zhao didn't even bother to look at him.
Your Majesty, this servant confesses, this servant will take the blame. This letter, full of affection.
These words caused an uproar throughout the hall. Gu Qingyi's body swayed, and she nearly fell from her seat. The emperor's face turned livid.
Continue.
A Zhao's entire body was trembling, yet his words were crystal clear.
His Highness the Crown Prince was resentful that he had not held real power for a long time and feared that the third prince's faction was growing too strong. So he ordered this servant to contact the Beatty merchants. He reached an agreement with Beatty that on the day of the spring hunt next year, they would breach the northern gates and let the Beatty cavalry in to incite a rebellion. He planned to seize military power under the guise of saving the emperor and force your majesty to abdicate.
Xiao Chenggong went completely mad. He lunged at a Zhao, but was immediately pinned down by the imperial guards.
You are talking utter nonsense.
A Zhao let out a desolate laugh.
Your Highness, when you can so ruthlessly abandon even me, who has been by your side for so long, what is there that you wouldn't do?
I silently watched the scene before me, feeling no sympathy in my heart. In my past life, he had abetted the villain. There was no sympathy in my heart. In our past life, he had abetted the tyrant. As he watched me step toward the underworld, step by step, he had never shown even the slightest hint of reluctance. A Zhao drew an exquisite key from his sleeve.
Inside the hidden compartment of the Eastern Palace's study, there is a complete set of secret documents hidden. Every single one was written by the Crown Prince's own hand. This servant has kept them safe all along.
Xiao Chenggong completely lost his mind. Disregarding all dignity, he scrambled and crawled toward his majesty.
Father, your son was deceived by this wretched person. He deliberately seduced me. Colluding with the Northern Dai was also his doing alone. Your son was momentarily muddled, but I absolutely had no intention of rebelling or forcing a mutiny.
The look his majesty directed at him had long since turned as cold as ice.
Seal the Eastern Palace and search it thoroughly.
The wait for the search results was agonizingly long. Gu Qingyi turned her head to glare at me, her eyes unable to suppress her malice.
Shen Ning, you knew the whole plan all along, didn't you?
My expression remained calm. Lady Gu must be joking. If I had known all along, then in my past life, how could I have met such a tragic end? Xiao Chenggong understood the resentment in my words. He glared at me with pure hatred.
Shen Ning, Why must you oppose me at every turn?
I let out a soft chuckle. Has your highness forgotten? The one who falsely accused me first and shifted the blame onto my head was you. I simply did not wish to take the blame for no reason. The troops sent to search the Eastern Palace returned swiftly, bringing back 3 wooden boxes. Inside the first wooden box was the complete set of correspondence the Crown Prince had personally sent to the Northern D. Inside the second box was a secretly drawn map of the northern border defenses. Inside the third box, stacks of love letters were neatly arranged. Every single one was addressed to a Zhao. Within the text, there were tender words of affection, intermingled with mentions of the spring hunt, the borderlands, and state affairs like the military tally, with private affairs and treason overlapping. There was no longer any way to deny it. His Majesty examined them, one by one, his face growing darker and darker. Finally, he threw all the letters, heavily, at Xiao Chenggong's feet.
You beast, while we are still seated upon the dragon throne, you are already in such a desperate hurry to seize power and rebel.
Xiao Chenggong collapsed to the ground, utterly speechless. Gu Qingyi crawled forward in tears.
Your Majesty, please discern the truth. Although this subject's daughter is betrothed to the Crown Prince, I knew absolutely nothing of these filthy dealings. I beg your Majesty to spare this subject's daughter.
Looking at her pitiful act, I spoke up. Does Lady Gu truly know nothing at all? She suddenly looked toward me, her expression filled with panic. I bowed to the Emperor. Your Majesty, this subject's daughter has one more matter to report. Before the matter of the Eastern Palace's love letters came to light, Lady Gu had repeatedly instructed her trusted maid to spread rumors outside that I was infatuated with the Crown Prince. If she did not know of the Crown Prince's secret affairs, why would she find a scapegoat for the Crown Prince in advance? Gu Qingyi argued vehemently.
You are talking utter nonsense. I had no past grievances with you, and have no enmity with you now. Why would I deliberately target you?
I stared intently at her. Because you knew long ago that the Crown Prince has no interest in women. You feared that after you became the Crown Princess, the secret would leak out. So you needed a girl infatuated with the Crown Princes to help you suppress all the gossip. All color drained from Gu Qingyi's face. Just then, the third prince spoke up.
Father, Lady Gu's personal maid is currently waiting outside the door.
Before long, the maid was brought into the hall. Seeing the scene before her, the maid was so terrified that her legs went weak. Without even needing to be tortured, she confessed everything truthfully.
It was all arranged by my young mistress. She said Miss Shen originally had feelings for the Crown Prince, so using her reputation to cover up the mess would be absolutely foolproof. She also said that once Miss Shen entered the Eastern Palace, allotting her a courtyard to live in would be a great act of favor.
The truth was now fully revealed. Gu Qingyi completely shed her gentle mask and screamed shrilly.
Shen Ning, why must you plot against me like this? Everyone knows you are infatuated with the Crown Prince. I was helping you enter the Eastern Palace, so you should be thanking me. You are merely going to be a concubine. Could you actually be dreaming of taking the Crown Princess's seat?
Her piercing voice echoed through the palace. The looks everyone cast at her were filled with utter contempt. I spoke calmly. So you knew very well in your heart that stuffing me into the Eastern Palace was never to help me, but to deliberately humiliate me. The emperor looked disgusted and immediately ordered on the spot.
The daughter of the Gu family is malicious and cruel. Her betrothal to the Crown Prince is hereby dissolved for failing to discipline their daughter properly. The Gu family's official stipends are docked for 3 years. Gu Qingyi is to be confined in her family's ancestral temple, never to step outside for the rest of her life.
As Gu Qingyi was dragged away by the guards, she kept screaming the Crown Prince's name, but from beginning to end, Xiao Chenheng never cast a single glance at her. His gaze remained fixed on Zhao. Their past love, when faced with life and death, was as fragile as paper. Finally, the imperial decree was announced. Crown Prince Xiao Chenheng had committed treason and rebellion. He was stripped of his title as Crown Prince, thrown into the death cells, and handed over to the 3 judicial offices for trial. Zhao was sentenced to be beheaded for the same crime. Everyone inside and outside the Eastern Palace was to be arrested and investigated. Kneeling in the Golden Hall, listening to the imperial decrees being handed down one by one, the resentment I had suppressed for 2 lifetimes finally dissipated. But I knew this was not the end. My family members were by no means innocent either. By the time I walked back to the Shen estate, the horizon was about to brighten. Father's face had been dark with anger the whole way. The moment he stepped over the threshold, he ordered the servants to lock the main gates tight. My stepmother had been waiting in the main hall for a long time, looking at me with eyes full of resentment, as if I were some disaster-bringing creature.
Kneel down.
Father spoke with a cold face. I stood where I was, not moving a single step. Father suddenly flew into a rage.
You have grown incredibly bold now. You got yourself entangled in the crown prince's dirty affairs in the palace, making the Shen family the laughingstock of the entire city, and yet you dare to refuse to bow your head.
I stared at him, finding it incredibly ridiculous. Father, if I had taken the blame on the spot today and been stuffed into the Eastern Palace, only then would the Shen family be completely dragged into a major treason case. My stepmother let out a cold snort.
You make it sound so grand. You just wanted to clear your own name. The whole city knows you are infatuated with the crown prince. Even if those letters weren't written by you, the reputation of the Shen family has already been completely ruined by you.
In my past life after I died, she had used this exact same rhetoric, asserting that I deserved to die. Father massaged his temples wearily.
Tomorrow morning, I will go to the palace to beg for forgiveness. For now, lock yourself in and do not go out. Stay in your room and behave yourself. In a few days, I will have your stepmother make arrangements to send you to a nunnery outside the city.
To become a nun? This was nothing more than another way to imprison me for life. I spoke softly. Is father planning to lock me away forever?
It is not imprisonment.
He avoided my gaze.
It is merely to let you escape the rumors for a while. Once a girl's reputation is ruined, it will be difficult for her to marry in the future. If you stay in the manor, you will also delay your younger sister's marriage.
My sister Shen Wan poked her head out from behind our stepmother and said in a soft voice, Sister, please show some consideration for our parents. Since you have already ended up in this state, do not drag me down as well. Since you have already ended up in this state, how utterly heartless. In my past life, after I entered the Eastern Palace, she used the pretext of the Shen family's connection to the Crown Prince to successfully marry into the Marquise's family. When the Crown Prince's rebellion was exposed, she was the very first to sever ties with me, claiming I was an outcast of the Shen family. On the day I was tortured to death, she was still enjoying herself at the Marquise's estate. I did not want to play along with their hypocrisy anymore. If father wants to send me away, it is not impossible. Father's expression softened slightly. I continued, but you must return all the dowry left to me by my late mother. My stepmother's face fell instantly. Father frowned.
What nonsense are you talking? That money has always been kept safe by your stepmother.
I looked at my stepmother. Is she keeping it safe? Or has she long since stolen it to buy my sister's dowry? My stepmother shrieked in anger.
Do not talk such nonsense.
I pulled a document from my sleeve. This is the inventory of the dowry brought from my grandfather's house. If you refuse to return it, I will go to the court of judicature and revision tomorrow morning and ask the authorities to investigate. Embezzling a deceased wife's dowry. What is the sentence for that? Father's face turned ashen.
Shen Ning, must you throw the Shen family into utter chaos?
Is this not exactly what father has always taught me? That family interests come above all else? My voice was calm and steady. Now, it is time for me to look out for myself. My stepmother trembled with rage. In the way father looked at me, fear appeared for the very first time. He finally realized that the girl who used to demean herself for love and back down at every turn was completely dead and gone. Returning to my side room, I stayed up all night to write a petition. It stated that when the Crown Prince's rebellion was exposed, the Shen family, in order to completely shirk responsibility, deliberately forged letters to accuse me of having an affair with the Crown Prince. As for the source of those forged proofs, I already had a lead after my rebirth. My stepmother's accountant and the merchants who used to go to the Eastern Palace daily. Since they wanted to use me as a scapegoat to escape disaster, then they could not blame me for tearing away all pretenses. At dawn the next day, a decree-bearing eunuch from the palace arrived at our door. The emperor summoned me to court for an audience. Father's steps faltered, his face deathly pale. I calmly accepted the imperial decree and stepped out the door. This time, it was their turn to tremble with fear. Inside the golden throne hall, Xiao Chenghang and Zhao lay prostrate below the dais. After just one night, the two of them were already in a wretched state. Their hair crowns had fallen off, their robes were torn, and their former dignity had completely vanished. The trial by the 3 judicial offices was quickly concluded. The Crown Prince's correspondence, the defense maps of the northern border, and the confessions of the enemy merchants from the north. Every single piece of evidence was ironclad and irrefutable. In front of the assembled civil and military officials, His Majesty issued an imperial decree.
Shen Ning, the daughter of the Shen family, was baselessly implicated by the Crown Prince. Yet, she remained calm in the face of crisis, saw through the conspiracy, and helped the state apprehend the traitor. She has rendered great service to the court. Let it be decreed to the governor of the capital that if there are any future rumors slandering Shen Ning's reputation, all perpetrators shall be prosecuted for spreading falsehoods.
As the reading of the imperial decree concluded, the assembled officials gasped in amazement. Father stood at the very end of the officials' ranks, his face turning paler by the second. Only yesterday, he was single-mindedly planning to push me forward, to suppress the storm. Now that the emperor himself had cleared my name, he finally realized that the girl he had almost discarded had now become the pride of the Shen household. Kneeling in the center of the imperial palace, with my forehead touching the ground, I felt a profound sense of peace in my heart. In my past life, I was tortured in the freezing snow, publicly reviled on the streets, and thrown into the death cells. Many times I cried from the injustice, yet no one cared. In this life, I will shed no more tears. I want everyone to understand that I never wrote that love letter. Nor did I ever try to curry favor with the imperial family. The moment Xiao Chengkong was being dragged to the death cells, he passed by my side and stopped his steps. His voice was hoarse as he spoke.
Were you not madly in love with me? Why won't you save me just one more time?
I stared at him and spoke slowly. Your Highness, I saved you in my past life, and for that, I paid with my life. Xiao Chengkang froze in his tracks, but I didn't bother to spare him another glance, and turned to walk away. Not long after, the deposed Crown Prince Xiao Chengdang's treason was fully proven, and he was poisoned to death in the imperial clan court. Zhao was sentenced to execution after autumn, while Gu Qinyi, who was confined to the family temple, muttered incoherently every day, constantly babbling about the position of crown princess. Within the Shen household, the atmosphere shifted completely. The relatives who had been bitterly cursing me behind my back just days ago now came to visit one after another, showering me with praise for my extraordinary courage. Father personally came out to welcome me, and my stepmother also put on an affectionate face, grabbing my hand with hypocritical flattery.
Ning. I was merely confused for a moment before. We are one family, so what resentment cannot be resolved?
I slowly pulled my hand away, and the smile on her face instantly froze. Shen Wan stood nearby, her eyes filled with a mixture of jealousy and fear. The marriage alliance with the Marquise's family, which had already been settled, became uncertain after they heard the emperor praise me in court. The Marquise's family began to waver, turning their attention to inquire about my intentions. Shen Wan was furious and threw a tantrum, yet she no longer dared to scream at me recklessly. Father spoke in a gentle, cautious tone.
Ning, as for sending you to the nunnery, it was your father's lack of consideration. You are the young mistress of the Shen family, so of course you must stay in the manor.
I can stay, I said, my gaze resolute. But you must return my late mother's entire dowry. Furthermore, the keys to managing the household affairs must be handed over to me. My stepmother shrieked in protest, but I placed the dowry ledger on the table, listing all the various misdeeds of her embezzling money over the years. Since the imperial eunuchs outside the gate had not yet gone far, father did not dare to lose his temper openly. He had no choice but to force my stepmother to hand over the warehouse keys. The glare my stepmother directed at me was filled with nothing but resentment, yet she had no choice but to endure it. I did not leave the Shen estate. I moved into the room where my birth mother had lived before she passed away. I watched these elders, who had once tried to drag me into hell, come to pay their respects to me every single day. In my past life, they stepped over my corpse to save their own skins. In this life, I will protect everything that belongs to me and live my life with my head held high. In the end, Shen Wan's marriage alliance fell through. Outsiders whispered behind my back about my ruthless methods, but I merely offered a calm smile. In my past life, when they pushed me into a corner and kicked me while I was down, no one ever condemned them for being vicious. On the day I moved into my birth mother's old quarters, the sun was exceptionally warm. I took out that love letter which had tormented me across 2 lifetimes and set it on fire myself. The flames consumed the rice paper, finally dispersing into a wisp of blue smoke. I once truly loved someone in secret, and for the sake of that affection, I once paid with my life. Having survived 2 lifetimes, I now fully understand that love is never a rope to bind oneself with, much less a pretext for outsiders to harm you. For the rest of my life, I will never be anyone's scapegoat again, nor will I ever take the blame for things I did not do.